Değerli konuklar, Uluslararası Kenan Rifai Sempozyumuna bedenlerimizi de şöyle bir...
After a little bit satisfying our bodies, we got together again at the International Symposium of Kenan Rifai. Thank you very much for coming again. God bless you all.
Efendim bazı sempozyumlarda öyle geliyor içime. Daha fazla lirik olsun diye şiirlere ağırlık veriyorum.
Sometimes I go lyrical and recite poems, and sometimes it is more like that. We will start with Nutku Şerif.
Hak suretidir alemi imkan ile Adem. Bundan güzeli nerede ki? Cennette mi sandın? Her yer ne güzel, menba-i hüsn, insan güzeli. Sen de bu cemali huri gılmanda mı sandın? Her yerde, fakat Arif'in kalbindedir Allah. Yoksa sen onu arzu semavatta mı sandın? Dünya diyerek geçme sakın.
Do not underestimate this world. Everything is here. Did you think balancing on Sirat was only there? Heaven and hell, sorrow and joy, darkness and light are all shadows of your deeds. Did you think they were not? Your knowledge is your value. You are what you demand. Do you think only to eat? And drink is what being a human being meant. Whatever is your state, you asked for it. Did you think that divine justice was inadequate? These are my thoughts. Every moment I invoke ah. Did you think it was in vain, burning fire of my ah? With each ah, Kenan renews the vow given when souls gather. Did you think my ah was the sigh and breath of the sleeper? So with these words, I'd like to open the session. The chair will be Professor Kenan Gürsoy, and the participants are going to be Assistant Professor Mustafa Tatçı. The presentation will be about Anatolia and Rumelia's Conquest and Rifai, Sarı, Saltuk. Mr. Tatçı is not going to be available today. Melike Bağlı, Miss Melike Bağlı is going to do it for him. The second participant is Stephen Hirtenstein.
Efendim TRT denetçileriyle benim dediğimi kabul ettirdim sonunda. Çünkü onların hiçbiri...
I got what I said accepted by at the people who do the checks in TRT. So, as you said, the School of Love and Knowledge, and Kenan Rifai and Bülent Rauf. And the third participant will be Professor Bruce Lawrence, and his speech will be The Prophet's Ascent, Ibn Arabi, Sheikh Muzaffar, and Kenan Rifai. We kindly invite you to the podium.
Efendim oturuma başlamadan önce yine meşgure...
Before starting this session, we're going to watch a short film from Mother Meşgure, and the session will start.
I may have told this before. For example, I asked him, the Quran says all the prophets are the same. There is no difference among the prophets. But Resulullah is the most perfected one and the last one. The perfect one, the most complete one. And I say, if there is no difference, how can he be the most perfected one? And Kenan Rifai says, Meşgure, when the sun sets, the first sun rays can be considered as Adam. And then try to compare all these other stages of rays, sun rays, to the other prophets. But at noontime, when we have direct sunlight descending to the earth, embracing the whole universe, that is Hazreti Muhammad. But the sun is the same. That makes no difference. But the last, being the last prophet and the most perfect, and to complete the beautiful conduct, that's the reason why he's different. And he taught us so beautifully and actually placed all this piece of information into our minds and hearts. One day he was really very, very ill, and there was so severe coughing, and he was not able to breathe properly. And I was also with him in the mansion, like a little circle, a few people, and I was writing notes down. But I noticed that he wasn't able to breathe properly because of severe coughing. And I said to Kenan Rifai, "Oh, my master, I know you are contented with everything that Allah gives you. You're always pleased. But please, for us, if you pray so that your cough will go away, or at least will be alleviated, so that we can have the lessons going on properly." And then he replied, "Oh, Meşgure, how can you complain about the guest that visits you? This sickness is ecr, guest, a reward. How can you complain about your guest? The guest should leave me by being content with me. Oh, we are the children of such a great sultan. Rıza, contentment, is what he really liked the most." And when he always said, when people asked the Prophet, "What is religion?" the Prophet replied, "Beautiful conduct." And the person who asks again, "What is religion?" "Beautiful conduct." "What is religion?" "Beautiful conduct." And then from the right, from the left, from behind, and then, "What is religion?" "As you can see, my son, you haven't been able to make me angry. It is beautiful conduct."
Şimdi gelecek. Muhterem hazırun.
Dear participants, dear friends on the road, I salute you with respect. I am Professor Kenan Gürsoy. There is a small bio in the booklet which doesn't actually express that I'm the grandson of Kenan Rifai. I might not be worthy of it, but I am, yes, the grandson of Kenan Rifai. I feel the need to say these things because there's a misunderstanding about the family. Dear Gürbüz Ertürk, a very loyal person, a very close friend to the family. He did a presentation yesterday about the rebuilding of the lodge, and he had a commentary. He perhaps didn't want that, but that was an expression that would cause confusion. If they allow me, I'd like to document this. Hazrat Kenan Rifai had one boy and two girls, one son and two daughters, and there's a Hayriye Hanımefendi who passed away before 1920s. After he passed away, the mansion and the place which was converted to from lodge to mansion, the mansion was divided between the children, one son and two daughters again, and at the side of mansion and the lodge, the brother and sisters might have properties, but both buildings were in very negative situation. We decided to renovate the buildings. The first one was by my mother's initiative, our contribution, and the great effort put forward by Gürbüz Ertürk. It was renovated as it is today. And the other building, which was used as Kenan Lodge until 1925, it was a wreckage. Even the dome itself had fallen. And my dear cousins, it had places in which my dear cousins lived, but they were not able to live there anymore. Building a new building, first we needed an official permit, which was not very easy. There were difficulties, and then the building was going to be rebuilt as it was before. Within the limitations of the time, it was not possible for the family to do this task, despite all the goodwill. And in the last year of 1900s, we founded Cenan Foundation and wanted this building to be taken into account. And Gürbüz Bey and Cemal Nur Hanım played great roles in this. And the building was passed on to Cenan Foundation, and my dear cousins gave it to Cenan Foundation with something in return. This building, the Dergah-ı Şerif building, being rebuilt, was done by the contributions of all brothers and sisters. As the president of Cenan Foundation, I am one of those who know the subject very well. Both Meşgure Hanım and Cemal Nur Hanım, they were energizing people to carry out the task, and this played a dominant role in the process. However, the whole community was determined to carry out this, and people contributed very small amounts, like 5 lira back in the time, and very small amounts. As the president of the Cenan Foundation, I know how important this is, and I appreciate and I want to express my gratitude to those who contributed to rebuilding it. And this initiation is from whom to whom, I don't know. The Kenan Lodge, and today as Cenan Foundation, this is the short story of it. But about this building, there is very little scientific and academic documents and notes. One of them is Mr. Aydın Yüksel's article on Islam Encyclopedia. Please forgive my forgetfulness. And the second one is initiated by dear Mr. Gürbüz Ertürk, and that would be the second document. To prevent any misunderstanding, I think it was just a mistake or a slip of the tongue. The family, when they said the family decided to sell the building. The family of Kenan Rifai, which I am the youngest one, none of us would be disrespectful to this heritage to sell it. Every one of us, as much as we can, would take it as subjective responsibility to contribute, and they were trying to disperse the love that they inherited from their fathers. So they have never been disloyal to the inheritance, but so that I thought there was a misunderstanding that could mean so I wanted to correct it. The expression is as follows: the family wanted to sell it, and the spiritual daughters and sons, they took action to protect it. Among his grandsons and daughters, there is no single individual who would be disrespectful to the inheritance, and this would underplay the action and the role played by Cemal Nur Hoca. So I wanted to say that. About the symposium, there is only Mustafa Kara mentioned about the previous symposium. Hazrat Kenan Rifai, his inheritance was going to be protected by Canan Foundation. So there was a previous symposium with limited financial budget and maybe a limited understanding, but they put effort and they carried it out. So I wanted this to be documented as well. Canan Foundation, after this time, from now on, we will continue to respect and protect this inheritance, and this has a symbolic value for us because it symbolizes a restart at the beginning of 2000s, and there was something shown here yesterday, the ascent of the dome with all its glory symbolizes what that symbol means. This dome is about his biological and spiritual grandsons and daughters. It has a unifying function. May God never make us leave each other and put us together under the dome.
İkinci söylemek istediğim,
The second thing I want to mention, exploiting the tolerance of the organizers, is about the theme of the symposium and about the presentations made here. As far as I can, and as far as I understood, there were very beautiful presentations. I had the concern that the element of excitement would be dominant, overflowing, but I didn't see that. And but of course we do have the excitement, we do have the energy, because we are loyal and we are committed to Hazrat Kenan Rifai. But then again, it's important to let the academic world know about the things being done here. And this is what Canan Foundation is trying to do about Kenan Rifai. And please do not underplay academic life and the message of Kenan Rifai. Let the message of Kenan Rifai be taken as with all its universal dimensions, and the unifying element and the harmony that would bring people from different cultural backgrounds together, and the evaluations on that, the relation with the other, and today, how to be a correct Muslim, the perceptions on that, this can only be carried out with an academic support. Kenan Rifai, speaking up on the lodges, he said, of course, the lodges would be reopened, but they would be reopened as academies. So what did he mean? Let's elaborate on that. On Tasawwuf, this is more than doing academic studies on Tasawwuf. Academia from very early ages, specifically the ancient Greek with the ancient wisdom, it's about a holistic approach of human development with the poetry, music, philosophy, but it's about realizing human. Of course, being honored with Islam, we would ask for something, a kind of a sustainable knowledge, a sustainable ancient tasawwuf would be more universalized, should have been more universalized with the light of Islam. And with this understanding, the unification of East and West from the early times on and from today to the future, we know that Kenan Rifai saw the wisdom and love, and we take his word as our slogan, with science, love, and art being on the way of wisdom. So what kind of a wisdom is this? This wisdom is what makes human a human. So under the dome of unity, let's get together as the people, as the guests of the world. Oh, the people of the world, please know about us and let's get together, because we're going through a tough time in the world. I was the Turkish ambassador to Vatican until 6 months ago, and I experienced personally that the situation is dire, and let's be humans again. Oh, the people who visited here from different parts of the world, please note that, understand that point, feel that, share this feeling with us. We are trying to contribute to world peace from within Islam, because Islam is the religion of peace. It's the religion of happiness. And those who do not feel, my grandfather was the person who felt this peace, this happiness in his body himself. And please salute to everyone from here. Thank you very much.
Sevgili Kenan Bey, size olan...
Dear Kenan Bey, the deep respect and love, we felt the necessity to make this clarification before. And with the contribution of dear Gürsoy, thank you very much. This Gürbüz Öztürk is one of the highest representatives of this loyalty, and again, I'd like to express my gratitude. But then again, sometimes words hurt. And please, this being not documented, and please, I want this, my evaluation at the end of Mr. Ertürk's presentation. They are all being documented. Thank you very much. Let's continue with this session. The dear and most appreciated Melike Türkân will do her presentation, a presentation made by Assistant Professor Mustafa Tatçı, please.
Tebliğimizin başlığı Anadolu ve
I would like to greet you all. The topic of my presentation is the conquest of Anatolia and Rumelia and Sarı Saltuk er-Rifâî. The fundamental effects of Alperans, whom Samia Ayverdi refers as the guards of principle, is a historical fact. And with her saying, as she states, these spiritual heroes had left their homeland, arrived from faraway places, and devoted their lives to their goals. They enlivened, developed, and revived the places they went and brought services without any request from anybody. And they were conquesting, and it was not an enthusiasm, an adventure, a destruction, an invasion, but it was a settling, union, and it was an effort of establishing civilization for Muslim Turks who fulfilled the fight to Turkify the land in the name of İlahi Kelimetullah as a true life principle. Thus, Sarı Saltuk, who was known to be one of these spiritual heroes, was remembered as Mücahit, Gazi, Gazi Dervish, blessed and holy person. And after visiting his mausoleum and listening to the anecdotes about him, Sultan Cem got Ebul Hayr Rumi to write Saltukname. This book tells us his real name was Şerif Hızır, and he was an orphan at the age of 3, and he was brought up by a maid, by a lala called Seravil, and the name Saltuk was given to him by the enemy in a battle. He was an extremely powerful person, and based on the narrations in Saltukname, he had extraordinary powers. He could hear things from faraway places. He could kill his enemies with the blow of his sword from where he was, and could move from one place to another in the blink of an eye. His enemies are never able to catch him. And he could speak a couple of languages, knew the Torah and the Bible entirely by heart. He was preaching in churches, in priest clothes, and inviting people to Islam in this way. In Evliya Çelebi's Seyahatname, it is stated that Sarı Saltuk conveyed Islam replacing priests. And the oldest source was İbn Battuta's Seyahatname, which tells us that he was born in the Babada region of current Romania in 1331 and 32. According to Yazıcıoğlu Ali's Oğuzname in 1261 and 62, the Seljukian Sultan İzzettin Keykavus II took shelter in the lands of Emperor Mikhail Palaiologos VIII, and he was shown Dobruja as the place to settle with Turkmenians, and the Sultan passed to Rumelia and settled there. Sarı Saltuk was the leader to those people. He lived until 1293 and was buried in a zaviye in Babada. Sarı Saltuk is said to have tombs and mausoleums in many different parts of Anatolia and Balkans. Kaliakra in Varna, Bulgaria, Ohri, Macedonia, İpek in Kosovo, Kruja in Albania, Blaga in Bosnia-Herzegovina, Baba Eski, Babada, Rumeli Feneri, Nicosia, Bor, Tunceli, and Diyarbakır are other places that he still has tombs that are visited today. Yusuf bin Ismail el-Nebhani talks about Sarı Saltuk in his book Cami-ü Kerametil Evliya, and he gives a reference to Ibn Seraj's book Tuffahul Ervah, written in 1315, which is the oldest known resource that talks about Sarı Saltuk. Also, Ibn Seraj has written an icazetname in 1308, a ratification, shows us that he is one of the grandchildren of Hazreti Pir Ahmed er-Rifâî and Tufahul Ervah and Miftahul Irbah tells us about the keramet and the menkıbes of many evliyas, and one of them is Sarı Saltuk, referred to as Saltuk et Türkî. This work cannot be regarded solely as a collection of anecdotes or miracles, because the date is given as 1315 and the writer has his own observations, so it is not only a collection of anecdotes and miracles. This also contains historical information and has verbal material, including some verbal culture of the region. Also, there is another anecdote, another menkıbe about Sarı Saltuk from the Tufahul Ervah. Sheikh Saltuk at Turkey went to a place where a group of about 1,000 men attacked unbelievers, the Kafirs lived. And after spending a couple of days, the sheikh stood up, took off his clothes and started attacking here and there, all naked, as if he was in an actual battle, and he was bleeding badly, and the dervishes were cleaning him continuously, which lasted for 3 hours on that day, and he sat down and calmed down. The dervishes asked him why, and he replied, a large group of enemy consisting of 30,000 men confronted a Muslim group moving towards the enemy. And I have seen that they were very weak against their enemies. I joined them with the power that God bestowed upon me, and I fought against them and directed them into the way I chose for them. Later on, the saved Muslims reached the Zawiya, the Dervish lodge, and they told the following: we were less than 1,000 men, and 30,000 of blasphemers attacked us. Once our defeat seemed to be certain, Sheikh Saltuk came and fought against them, and we have seen him saving us from them. So Ibn Sarraj's book has a special importance. It includes important explanations about the Tariqa of Rifai and the membership of Sarı Saltuk. Ibn Sarraj connects this with Mahmud Hayrani and says this: know that Mahmud Hayrani went to Abide. He stood before the tomb of our master, Sultanul Arifin Seyyidus Sıddık'in Ahmet bin Ebil Hasan er-Rifâî. This waiting between them continued without intermediary until an outstanding state opened up before him and plentiful kısmet and pure chance came up to. Mahmud Hayran benefited also from Ahmet Müstacil, who was the head of the Dervish Lodge in Abide, and made him confirm the inspiration he drew from Ahmet er-Rifâî through the Uweysi way, and he returns back to Anatolia as a Rifai sheikh. And one of the cues about Mahmud Hayrani's being a Rifai is the inscription on the symbolic coffin of his grandson Sayyid Ali. Ibn Sarraj includes the following explanation in this book: then Sheikh Saltuk became a companion of Mahmud Hayrani, was blessed by him, and became one of the distinguished men of his era. He defeated a lot of kafir, unbeliever people, and various groups surrendered to him there. Allah inspired a lot of people to seek the way of truth thanks to him. His divine power became evident. His celestial and Allahly evidence gained a reputation. Here Ibn Sarraj puts forward for certain that Mahmud Hayrani was a Rifai sheikh and that Sarı Saltuk joined him. And also he was guided by Mahmud Hayrani for conquest and holy war. Mahmud Hayrani, whom Ibn Sarraj connects Sarı Saltuk by means of tariqa, lived in Akşehir near Konya and died there in 1269. In the collected poems named Hızırname, written in 880 by Sheikh Muhyiddin, a Bektashi poet, it was narrated that Mahmud Hayrani was present at the social gatherings with some holy people like Hacı Bektashi Veli, Sadreddin Konevi, Mevlana Sultan Veled, just as Sarı Saltuk did. Another document showing that Mahmud Hayrani and Sarı Saltuk belonged to Rifai order was En-Necm Üs-Saifi Menakıbil Kutbil Kebirir Rifai. This book was written by Yemeni Sufi called Abdullah el-Ayderusi. In this book, which is like a Menakıb Name, it was shown that Sayyid Mahmud el-Hayrani el-Rumi and his disciples Sarı Saltuk and Barak Baba were connected with Ahmet er-Rifâî. In this piece of work, the topic is stated as follows. When the fondness of Sayyid Ahmet er-Rifâî fills his heart, Mahmud Hayrani leaves his tribe and withdraws from his statesmanship completely. Bareheaded, barefooted, he comes for the honorable service of Sayyid, and becoming his disciple, he stays with Sayyid for 12 years in rapturousness. During this condition of enchantment, 400 snakes and 400 dragons bite Mahmud, yet not Mahmud, but the biting creatures die. So after the 12 years, Hazreti Seyyid-i Kebir looks at Mahmud Hayran and lures him in with ecstasy. He commands, attend to the condition of your admission, your saluk. Next day, Sayyid says, well, Mahmud Hayran, enter the treasure house of the dervish, fakir, and take the resources necessary for you. And Mahmud Hayran, obeying this order, he enters the treasure house. That is to say, he returns to this world for his duty to show the true path. He heads for Anatolia with Sayyid's permission in his service. Shortly, he arrives at Anatolia, Rome, and sees a crowd of people having a talk in a district. And one of the people among them is Sarı Saltuk, which gets up and greets him. And the rest is told like this. Mahmud Hayran Hazretleri told him, open your mouth. He did. And Mahmud Hayran put his fist inside Sarı Saltuk's mouth. And he was enchanted with the admiration by the breath of Seyyid-i Kebir. Because Hayran's breath, namely his glance, is the breath of Seyyid-i Kebir. Saltuk fell so much in love with Hayran that he was infatuated. And here the explanation in the books Tufahul Ervah and Miftahul about Mahmud Hayran and Sarı Saltuk's being Rifai by Tarika has been proven. In an as narrated, it says in En-Necm Safi Menakib, Sheikh Ahmedi Yesevi came to Hazreti Sayyid Ahmed er-Rifâî's service with 400 dervishes. He arrived at the district called Abide. He ordered the dervishes, put me in a large container and close the top. Open it at the square at the glance of Ahmed er-Rifâî. The dervishes obeyed his order and opened the top of the container. Sayyid Ahmed glanced him. He saw a roasted lamb in the container. Sayyid Ahmed said, Allah bless you, Ya Ahmed Yesevi. We see that you have matured, you have cooked. At that moment, Sayyid said the prayer of Ihlas by saying, Kul huvallah. Then Sayyid Ahmed Yesevi stood and pledged allegiance to Sayyid Ahmed. He wore the dervish coat of nothingness and became a sincere follower. He even became Sayyid's leading Khalifa and was appointed to the district of Khita and Khotan and Turkestan. All the Orient region was his appointment. He reached at such a level that he had 90,000 prestigious followers. The essence of all the blessing is Sayyid Ahmed er-Rifâî. When we look at the roles of Sarı Saltuk and Ahmet Yesevi directly and indirectly in conquest of Anatolia and Rumelia into consideration, the spiritual involvement in this conquest comes up as an important aspect. These individuals were on a mission to conquest both the land and the hearts and dedicated their lives to this conquest. In the light of historical information and documents, Sarı Saltuk and Ahmet Yesevi's spiritual master was proven to be Ahmet er-Rifâî Hazretleri and his representative in the 20th century. Kenan er-Rifâî Hazretleri, belonging to the branch of Seyyid of Rifai path, is a conqueror of hearts. He says the following about Hazreti Pir Ahmet er-Rifâî. He has never-ending supremacy, but his degree of excellence and moral principles are composed of permanent modesty, ajz, humility, knowing that a human being has no power before Allah and nothingness. Therefore, the prominent manifestation of Rifai people is modesty, humility. It is true that modesty, humility, humbleness is the essence of all tariqas. Yet for Rifais, the manifestation is in the course of excessive modesty. Imagine that Sultan, after having the honor of kissing the blessed hand of Rasulullah, was overwhelmed with such an ecstasy and revelation of modesty that lying in front of Babus Salam, he said, "Those who love Allah, please trespass over me, pass stepping on me." Based on the narration in Abdullah el-Aydarusi's book, with the blessing of Ahmet er-Rifai Hazretleri, Ahmet Yesevi, who enlightened Turkestan and conveyed Islam in its Sufi nature from east to west through his dervishes coming sequentially, he has enlightened the 20th century and beyond, being born in the second half of the 19th century, and whose benevolence is everlasting on us, are the evidences in the world that the source of the never-ending conquest movement of the perfected human being that come into existence in Tariqa Rifai is the principle of modesty, humility, ajz, poverty and nothingness. Kenan Rifai has authorization in 4 paths, tariqa, and with the maturity necessary to his era, he says the following as a fundamental path to the path of Prophet Muhammad. If we ask what tariqa is and where the term comes from, we can say that it comes from the path that unites the seeker with the desired one, the disciple with his or her wish, and the part with the whole, and that it was sent by Rasulullah. Here all the seemingly different spiritual paths are single, actually having no differences from each other, and all of them are called the tariqa of Muhammad, just like there are many different roads going to Baytullah, Kaaba, because there are a lot of ways going to the Kaaba from different parts of the world. But the center and the goal of these roads is single, and that is Beyt-i Muazzama, in other words, Kaaba. Being a perfected teacher and the thorough successor and substitute of our master, the purpose of our existence in this world is to find this delegate and get into her training. It is necessary that he or she be our leader and guide, since Ahlullah is seen through him, what the pilgrim seeks, and what his her wish is to see the beauty of Allah. Briefly, whatever he or she seeks is present in the worship. Therefore, the matter is not the tariqa of Kadiri, Rifai or Mevlevi, but to find the perfected human being. Once you find this human being, you see all that the spiritual paths are present in her or him, and that all the leaders of dervishes are seen through this master. With these words, with the confirmation that the individuals mentioned above, like Sarı Saltuk, Mahmud Hayrani and Ahmet Yesevi, were the members of Rifai Tariqa, he was meaning to say that the emphasis is put on Tawhid, unity principle, and the belief that is symbolized in the notion of perfected human being. So the principle of that idea of unity, Tawhid, is what constitutes purpose and the secret of truth behind never-ending protection and conquest of Sarı Saltuk, who knew the Torah and the Bible by heart and who invited people to Islam in the cloaks of priests, and Kenan Rifai, who belonged to Seyyadi branch of Rifai path and whom even the priests joined and became his followers. We have heard Mr. Mustafa Tatçı's wonderful presentation deserves a round of applause, and we thank him for this beautiful piece of work. And Melike has delivered it eloquently. We would like to thank her too. So what is important is to find the human, and we all need to go towards that perfected human being from our own angle, from our own dimension and aspect, and seeing that is what we call irfan. Once that Kabe was Kabe, Allah never sat in there for a single day, but God is hidden in the heart of the believer. So being stable in that place, in the center of the heart, and taking strong steps toward that direction is important. What matters here is to be the wayfarer. The path is what one follows. So now I would like to give the word, I'm hoping that I pronounce it correctly, Stefan Hirtenstein. I'm hoping I pronounce it correctly, will deliver his presentation with the topic of the School of Love and Knowledge, Reflections on Kenan Rifai and Bülent Rauf.
Tek olan Allah'ın adıyla, bütün var olan her şeyi yaratan, açan Allah'ın adıyla, bütün övgüler Allah'adır ve var olan her şey ona muhtaçtır. Bu sözler İbn Arabi'nin kitabında bir duanın başında yazıyor. Bir hadisle başlamak istiyorum. Bir insan öldüğü zaman yapıp ettikleri kapanır. 3 durum müstesna. Bir tanesi devam eden bir iyiliği varsa ya da faydalı bir ilim sahibi ise.
İnsan öldüğü zaman amel defteri kapanır. 3 şey ki müstesna. Bir tanesi yaptığı bir hayırdır. Bir tanesi de onun diğer insanlara olan hayırları. Her şeyden önce ben bu konferansı tertip edenlere ve beni buraya davet edenlere
has been necessarily indirect. That is to say, through the wonderful, welcoming people who are gathered here today and with whom I've had some contact over the years. Cemal Nur Hanım, many others of you who I know, who are embodying and committed to the teachings of Kenan Rifai, as well as through a small number of writings that are available in English via the internet and the book Listen, which has been so ably translated by Victoria Holbrook. Words on a page, however, require to be ingested and digested in order to become food and nourishment. The great 20th century English poet W.H. Auden very eloquently put this in an elegy to his contemporary W.B. Yeats. The words of the dead are modified in the guts of the living. In this sense, Kenan Rifai is both a source of inspiration, whose actions can inspire and educate us today, and a modifier of previous inspiration, one who created his own precursors in an innovative and fresh way. Now, I know that almost all of you here have also had an indirect physical contact with Kenan Rifai, that is to say, mediated by one of his direct students. So you also can savor the taste of a past master in the guts of the living. Likewise, I'm perhaps the only one here today who knew Bülent Rauf directly, who spent time in his physical presence and benefited from his instruction. Yet how is it possible to convey to you what it was like to be with Bülent, to be in his presence? All I can say is that something was implanted in me as a kind of imperishable light or touchstone, which has helped me navigate my way through the difficulties and asperities of this life, despite being aware of innumerable shortcomings and all too evident faults. But as the great Üftade once said to his student Aziz Mahmud Hudai, capability is not a prerequisite for beneficence. In other words, it's not necessary to be worthy or to feel able to respond properly or to be in a good state of appreciation or any other form of self-judgment. All that is real is pure beneficence. It showers down on us whether we're aware of it or not, and whether we think we deserve it or not. So I want to explore here some brief thoughts on how these two great late Ottomans, Kenan Rifai and Bülent Rauf, immersed in beauty, reinterpreted traditional teachings in ways that are suitable and appropriate to us in this very modern world. A few words about Bülent Rauf to begin with. Born in Istanbul in 1911, he was the great-grandson of Ismail Pasha, the Khedive of Egypt. His family had close connections to the imperial house, as well as through his maternal line to the great Jelveti master Aziz Mahmud Hudai. He was educated at Yale and Cornell universities, and after his marriage to the sister of the King of Egypt and subsequent divorce, he moved to England, where he settled. He devoted the later part of his life to the establishment of the Bishara School of Intensive Esoteric Education in Scotland and the Muhyiddin Ibn Arabi Society in the UK and elsewhere. His chief literary work was the translation into English of one of the greatest Ottoman commentaries on Ibn Arabi's Fusus al-Hikam, written by Abdullah Bosnevi. Once in Beylerbeyi, he went to visit his cousin, who lived there. Some of you may know her name, Münevver Ayaşlı. And as he came into the room, Münevver Ayaşlı introduced him to some of the people there, saying, "This is my cousin Bülent. He has fallen into the ocean of Ibn Arabi, and he doesn't want to come out." Like Kenan Rifai, he was fluent in several languages: Turkish, Persian, Arabic, English, French. But the second half of his life was spent primarily in the UK rather than in Turkey. He became familiar with the Western mindset, especially among the baby boomers, and was thus able to tailor what he had to say to suit an English-speaking audience. Growing up in the late Ottoman milieu, so saturated with dervish orders, Bülent foresaw that the traditional style teaching methods had had their day and that a new kind of world was opening up, one in which a more direct form of teaching would take place. Thus, for example, he never referred to himself in any way as a teacher, because he said, "The only teacher is God." By introducing us to the famous hadith, "I was a hidden treasure and I loved to be known," Bülent envisioned a different form of learning in the school of love and knowledge, a learning that would be each person's direct responsibility, unmediated by an ordinary student-teacher relation. He recognized that a very different kind of world was arising, one in which older forms of training would no longer work or be appropriate. And today one sees the same or similar recognition in every genuine spiritual tradition throughout the world. He used to compare our situation to the step change we make when we move from secondary or high school, where children are taught piece by piece, subject by subject, by a particular teacher whose knowledge is necessarily somewhat general, and where the focus is on the relationship between pupil and teacher, and then we have to move on to a university, where the student is expected to study in depth, to discuss with others of like intent, to evaluate the available literature, and to form their own view with the help of a specialist tutor or professor, who is there simply to guide and open up different ways of looking. Bülent saw this as a fundamental general characteristic of today's globalized worldview. In fact, a sea change in human development. And just as Kenan Rifai accepted the changes brought by Atatürk in Turkey as divinely appointed, so did Bülent welcome globalization as the necessary concomitant of a universal perspective. And as Kenan Rifai said, from now on, the lodge is under the sky. Both Kenan Rifai and Bülent Rauf grew up in an Ottoman imperial milieu, unfettered by notions of the nation-state. Multilingual, multicultural, multi-faith, tolerant of difference, steeped in a spirituality founded on the twin towers of Ibn Arabi and Rumi. A long tradition that speaks of love and knowledge as the very essence of what it means to be a human being. So here let me say something about the school of love and knowledge, of Muhabba and Ma'rifah, a school that has been in existence since the dawn of humanity, a school where people and all life forms learn how to live life in its fullness as a wholesome goodness, the school whose awesome motto is inscribed over its entry gate, I was an unknown treasure and I loved to be known. A school where love is the sole motivation and knowledge, that is direct experiential knowing, is the only desired outcome. Sheikh Ghalib referred to this school as the school of right conduct or spiritual courtesy, Mektebi Edeb. Its teacher he called Professor Madness, Molay Junun. It is the place where all spiritual virtues and divine characteristics are learnt and put into practice. We don't simply learn by repetition or intellectual appreciation, even though those may be virtuous. We learn primarily and initially by mimesis, that is to say, imitating with one's whole attention and being as far as possible, not simply through the intellect. This mimesis is how we all learnt as babies, so it's not foreign to anybody here. We imitated and we absorbed what our parents and teachers said, the way they behaved, and so on, until we became formed as what we take as our individual self. In the school of love and knowledge, this mimesis is equally necessary to unlearn self-building, to dismantle the illusion of self-existence which has been so carefully constructed. For the purpose of the school is simply to realize the truth of what is passed down by tradition, to verify for oneself in one's moment-by-moment awareness or knowing, ma'rifah, and in the core of one's being, beyond all trace of individual selfhood. In the words of Ahmed al-Rifai, the true knower, the arif, is annihilated in the vision of the exalted truth and remains without an individual self or any intermediary cause on the carpet of reality. For Abu Yazid al-Bistami, the lowest degree of the arif consists of walking on water and flying through the air. The highest degree of the arif consists of walking in the two worlds without turning one's gaze to any other than him. In modern parlance, Bülent put it, the degree of evolution of a person is measurable by the constancy of his or her awareness. Now we should be aware there is a curious paradox. There is an aim, a goal, a target, which implies that wherever we find ourselves to be, we have not reached the destination. There is a gap between our current position and our goal. And yet the stated aim is to realize here and now, to remove an imagined distance between how we find ourselves to be and the destination we are striving to reach. Ibn Arabi speaks of this conundrum in the chapter of Noah in his Fusus al-Hikam as seeking that which one is in already. And he talks of two kinds of people, those who find themselves in wonderment and bedazzled perplexity, hayra, and those who see themselves as traveling on a path, a tariq. And I quote, for the person of wonderment, there is turning and the movement of circling around the pole from which he never departs. The person of the path, which is long, is one who inclines away from the goal, seeking that which he is in already and imagining it as his aim. For him, there is a from and a to, and all that lies between them. But for the person of circular movement, there is no beginning that would require a from, nor an end that would demand a to. To him belongs the most complete finding, wujud. End of quote. This is very reminiscent of the image that Umid Safi used yesterday of the Mevlevi with his foot planted firmly on the ground and the other foot turns. This turning, this circling around the pole from which one never departs, is the meaning of the affirmation of unity, of Tawheed. The pole here does not designate a human being who serves as the axis or pivot of the age. It refers to the unity of God and the no-otherness of all else, that all other is in fact God's self-revelation, tajalli, according to the various names and places of manifestation. As Kenan Rifai put this, unity, Tawheed, is the summit, the last step of this excellence. Such Tawheed was for Bülent the most essential point to understand. And his viewpoint on it was as fresh and direct as anyone's. Near the end of his life, while staying in Beylerbeyi, near where he was born, he once asked us, what is the single most important point that must be understood by a person who wants to know? It is that there is only one unique, absolute, infinite existence. It must be more than an idea. One has to be so completely certain of it that one adopts it through reason and intuition as the basic, unshakable fact of one's existence. Then every possible ramification that occurs to one is seen as not being outside the existence, but as being an aspect of it. Elsewhere he wrote, essentially, there is no other existence or existent than the one and only. This way of understanding the unity of existence, with special emphasis on the non-existence of anything but the existence of only the one, should be indelibly printed before our eyes and stressed in our thoughts at all moments and under all considerations. And incidentally, in this matter, when he said our eyes, he was equally referring to himself, because he used to say we are all students in this matter. This non-existence or no otherness is equally a pointer to the perfect human being or pole, the kutub, whose will is so indissolubly tied to the divine will that they are totally empty of themselves. As Ahmed Rifai put it, a dead man who is truly living and a living man who is truly dead. This was always emphasized by Bülent when speaking of our true potential as human beings. He wrote, "The perfectibility of man," by which he meant the possibility of perfection of the human being. The perfectibility of man seems that promise in which hope and comfort, not only psychological, but as a true practical possibility, draws one on, helping one round the asperities of life and living. He spoke of human destiny in terms of God's Bashara, the good news that was first announced by Gabriel into Mary, and the inbreathed mystery of the appearance of Jesus as the perfect human being. In particular, he described this Bashara as an omen of joy in relation to the second coming of Jesus. An omen, and I quote, of what will happen in the future, not in your future, not in anybody's future, but in the order of things to be, as he has set the lines for it to happen. He depicted this as preparing, through people attaining each their own goal, the universal esoteric platform for the coming of Christ for the second time. To have even a breath of what that signifies is truly transformative. To realize in oneself that there is only one infinite existence is to be liberated from otherness. This is why Bülent used to stress the implications of unity in every aspect and in every dimension, so that one never turns the gaze to anything other than him. After all, once the premise of unity is truly accepted, what other is there to turn to? He was once on a visit in Konya, where he used to go regularly to visit Rumi, and a man came up to him who recognized him from previous years and said to him, "You come every year, you must love Rumi very much." The reply came back, "No, we love what Rumi loved and what loves him." He dedicated his life to the service and exposition of love and knowledge. In everyone he met and interacted with, he sought to implant a real taste for that same love and knowledge, which is intrinsic to every human being. I personally remember very well one afternoon when I asked him about the Darwinian worldview that we're all trained in these days and supposed to accept as scientific fact, that life evolves through the process of natural selection, and the primary motive of all life forms, including our genes, is the preservation of life at all costs. I said that to me this view seemed rather unsatisfactory. I felt there was much more. His answer was direct and simple. Yes, he said, at the level of the ordinary human being, this is how life appears to be. But for the one who really knows, the Arif, the primary motive is always love, and the work of the Arif is to preserve love, to nurture love, to manifest love. What I wanted to convey today is not the memory of a great man who died in 1987, but something of this impulse and teaching that was tenderly planted in the soil of my soul. So I want to end with Two things. First of all, a quotation that Bülent wrote on how one can respond to and serve sheer divine beauty, that which speaks of itself as an unknown treasure and loves to be known. Response to sheer beauty, universal, all-pervading, has to be in the same way universal, all-pervading. If not, then the response does not fit or suit the original uniqueness of the premise which sheer beauty expresses. From an individuated reality, a response in consequence of that individuation is expected. However, this depends on the possibility and receptivity of the individual. Yet the response should be as general and as universal and as sheer, just as the origin of that which requires the response is unique, universal and sheer. Only the perfect servant of that sheer beauty can respond in that way. If one asks oneself, am I capable of this? The answer is general and universal. There is no man who is in the image of he who has fashioned man in his own image, who has not been given, in potential, that ability. What then hinders each or any is the choice so to do or not, or in other words, the resolve so to serve or not, without in that service there being any odour of an intention of serving oneself, even marginally or accidentally. Finally, all depends on the individuated individual. I'd like to end these all too brief reflections by noting that while all depends on the individuated individual, at the same time, capability is not a prerequisite for beneficence. As a result, we can never make valid comparisons between one spiritual master and another. The light of guidance is one, however they may appear, as God is the only guide. Their value and validity lies in their servanthood and their realization of non-existence in the face of Him who is the only truth. Whatever they appear to accomplish is due to the fact that He orders them in such and such a manner. For they know that they are nothing but Him manifesting His love to be known. So as Kenan Rifai says, we are all together in Him. We are all together in Him. Thank you.
Değerli üstadımıza teşekkür ediyorum, tebrik ediyorum. Bu güzel benzerliği, paralelizmi, hatta manevi dostluğu bize ifade ettikleri.
Let me express one of the similar sides. From the one side, the level of evolution for a person is about the stability of realization, about the existence of the Creator, existence of the truth. And this is about first annihilating yourself. And Hazrat Kenan Rifai says, we are the dervishes of Rifai, our prestige is about annihilating ourselves. I hope we'll be together in the hereafter. Thank you very much. Now, I'll give the microphone to our dear friend, dear guest, Bruce Lawrence. He also speaks Turkish now. I don't know if he's going to speak in Turkish. Thank you. He's going to talk about the ascent of the Prophet Muhammad. Please, sir.
Well, thank you for that generous introduction, and I I feel humility more than I feel readiness. A little bit of capability, but more humility right now as I find myself having to speak after having enjoyed very much the trip here and having enjoyed so much that has been given to me and all of us, especially by Cemal Nur Hoca, but also in the larger sense by Kenan Rifai. And I was sitting trying to think of what I could do, and I realized there's something I can do that nobody else has done yet. And I would like to say that for the languages I can't speak, as well as the ones that I can, I am grateful to translators. So I'd like us to pause for a moment and thank the people who translate for us. We all believe in el-Ghaib, but sometimes el-Ghaib has voices, and they're the translators. So I'm going to myself talk today about a subject very dear to my heart, but one where His Excellency Kenan Rifai knows much more, and many of you know much more than I do. The reflections of Kenan Rifai on the notion of the Mi'raj of the Prophet, and in order to put it in some perspective, I am comparing his reflections in Sama with those of Sheikh Muzaffar in his book Irshad, and several reflections from Ibn Arabi. And again, I say I hesitate to speak about this because with James Morris and also Bill Chittick in the audience, I hesitate to say anything about the Mi'raj, according to Ibn Arabi, that they haven't said and said better. So let me give my few humble reflections about the Mi'raj of the Prophet with reference to Sheikh Muzaffar, Ibn Arabi, and also Kenan Rifai. It's certainly one of the most arresting narratives in the life of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that he ascends to heaven after a journey from Mecca to Jerusalem, the Mi'raj after the Isra. And you all know this from Surah An-Najm, but let me give you the translation in English that comes from my friend Shaukat Turawa, which attempts to rhyme a little bit of the Arabic in English. By the star when it sets, your companion neither worries nor frets, nor does he ever speak with regrets. It's only revelation that he begets. It's one mighty in power who projects and propels him upward to what perfects, far beyond the horizon where the sun sets, nearer and nearer to the source he trajects, so close that a mere bowline between them intersects. And so what is this Mi'raj that's described here in Surah An-Najm from the Quran? At the first level, according to Sheikh Muzaffar, there are many angels and the Prophet Muhammad who greet the Prophet, peace be upon him. At the second level, it's other prophets, Isa and Yahya, who hail him. At the third level, he meets Joseph and Solomon. At the fourth level, it's Musa, his mother, Pharaoh's wife, along with Mary, the mother of Jesus. At the fifth level, he meets the prophets Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob, and Lot. Then, at the sixth level, the prophets Idris and Noah. And finally, at the seventh level, dazzled by yet another chorus of angels, he finds in their midst the prophet Abraham. And Ibrahim greets Muhammad warmly, but then bids him farewell as the prophet journeys onward alone to the lotus tree. While this narrative is taught, the differences in its interpretation are manifold. For instance, between Sheikh Muzaffar and Sheikh al-Akbar ibn al-Arabi, there's even a disagreement about which prior prophets and which prophetic relatives the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, met at each level. And as I said, it's to James Morris. I have a hard time calling him Jim up here. Jim in private, but James in public. It is to Professor James Morris that we all must be grateful for providing a very concise exposition in a wonderful book edited by Michel Chotkowitz, in which Bill Chittick also has wonderful chapters. But in that, James Morris talks about all the three sources from which he draws in talking about the Mi'raj of Sheikh al-Akbar, Kitab al-Israr, Isaat al-Anwar, and of course, most importantly, the 167th chapter of Fütuhâtı al-Makkiyya. And there you have a different sequence than with Sheikh Muzaffar. To be sure, you have Adam in the first heaven and Ibrahim in the seventh, but the journey is a little different in between. There's Isa and Yahya in the second, but then Yusuf in the third, Idris in the fourth, Harun, Aaron in the fifth, and Musa in the 6th. And as James Morris notes himself, Ibn Arabi's analysis and list reflects his own sense of the inner spiritual journey that's signified by each of these prophetic encounters. And then he goes on to note, in what I think is a marvelous insight, that this experience of the Mi'raj of the Prophet Muhammad also resembles the sequence of the chapters in Fusus al-Hikam, the famous and much commented on book by Ibn Arabi. And the listing of Shaykh al-Akbar Ibn Arabi most closely resembles the account of the Mi'raj found in Sahih Muslim, where the prophets are given in the order that I just mentioned. But I don't want to focus on those differences. Instead, I want to look at Kenan Rifai and his own intense inner journey. It's as if Ibn Arabi anticipates the approach that exceptionalizes Kenan Rifai's account. And what is that? To etch and then evoke the correspondence between the Mi'raj of the Prophet, Mi'raj al-Rasul, and Mi'raj al-Mu'min, the ascent in the heart of each believer. And of course, I rely, as others have relied, on the marvelous translation of Victoria Holbrook from the partial commentary on the Masnavi of Kenan Rifai, and I'm going to use some of the examples from her wonderful translation in what I say that follows. There are 4 passages that concern me where Kenan Rifai talks about the Mi'raj. The first comes early in response to the story of the Padishah who meets the divine physician. Most of you, I think, know this story very well. Kenan Rifai interprets it, and this is his words, or his words as translated by Victoria Holbrook. It is a silent, wordless meeting. It is an attempt to wrestle between the tension of ishq-i majazi and ishq-i haqiqi, between what we call metaphorical love and true love. And at this moment, the intellect becomes impotent. In Kenan Rifai's words, he, the intellect, is ashamed of the incapacity and insufficiency of what he has said and prefers to remain silent. Here we face the irony and limits of the human intellect. It understands and describes all beings, but when it comes to love, it's as if tongue-tied. And this is the poet who comes to my mind. Kasi sirash namidanan zabandar kash. No one knows his secret. Shut up, shut up. Be quiet, be quiet. And the spiritual insight of Kenan Rifai then pivots in a novel way to engage this age-old conundrum. The intellect is part of the ascent, but the intellect can go only so far. Now, others of you may know where he takes this from. I would think it's a work of his own genius, but others can, and I hope will correct me. If he quotes it, it's a brilliant quote. If he makes it from his own wonderful imagination, it's even better. He compares the stunted, silenced intellect with the Archangel Gabriel. And here he underscores how instrumental beauty can be and always is coupled with ontological futility. The intellect, like Gabriel, can only go so far, to quote from his commentary in Holbrook's wonderful translation. This is why the angel Gabriel, who accompanied Hazrat Muhammad, peace be upon him, as far as the Sidra tree during the Mi'raj, said when they passed the frontier of intellect and came to the frontier of love, O messenger of God, I cannot go on. If I take one step further, I will catch fire and burn up. Some of you may recall yesterday when I must say, of all the many things I've enjoyed here is these wonderful images that we've had playing behind us before we begin with our intellects to try and say something about Kenan Rifai. We've had these marvelous recollections behind us, and I was particularly taken when Aziza was talking about the fact that she met Kenan Rifai and she felt as if she was going to be on fire and burn up. And I said her expression and the pathos and wonder in her face reminded me of this couplet from Rumi, Hasale ishq azin se sukhan peshnist, sukhtam, o sukhtam, o sukhtam. The sum total of love is but 3 words. It, of course, is the same word in Persian. Sukhtam, o sukhtam, o sukhtam. I burn, I burn, I burn. And the same thread of annihilation through fire, the fire of Ishq, stops Gabriel later in the same commentary when once again Kenan Rifai explains the Mi'raj as a spiritual experience of the Prophet first of all, but then as an example and also a possibility for others who seek truth. These are his words in Holbrook's translation. Earlier, for the seeker of truth, it was his heart which was teacher of intellect to him and conducted his training by way of intellect. But when the knowledge of God, the truth, haq ilmi, covers his being, intellect becomes student to him. And this person whose heart has been occupied by love of God accomplishes the spiritual mi'raj. And how do we understand this? He goes on to say, to transcend the limit of the intellect is to go beyond the point where Gabriel stopped. While Gabriel was ascending to God with Hazrat Muhammad, peace be upon him, on the Mi'raj, they came to a point where he said, "O Muhammad, if I take one step further, the light of self-disclosure will burn me, destroy me. This is my limit." And he remained behind, while Hazrat Muhammad, peace be upon him, continued on the path to reach God. Now, I think I could stop my paper here. Some of you may wish I would, because we've had some very long, interesting papers. But I have just a little more to tell you, because the next two stories, in my view, are the best. They also come from Kenan Rifai. They also come from Sama, or listen. And they are beyond what anything you could have imagined, or I could have imagined, before I got to this point in reading the Holbrook translation. Because what we find next is where the journey is not the individual journey, either of the Prophet Muhammad or of us ourselves. It is a collective journey. It is never a journey we make alone. It is a journey we make in the company of others. And this is how it's described with reference to the Masnavi by Kenan Rifai. The first commentary is a tale about the attributes of the wings of the birds of divine intellects. It plays on the oxymoron, what happens when we collectively, together, arrive at the place that is no place, makan la makan. As he says in his commentary, it's the secret of Solomon, the great prophet and lover of birds. It alludes to each lover who, like the parrot, and Kareem did not ask me to include this, even though he likes parrots. It alludes to each lover who, like the parrot, wants to flap its wings and fly in space to the realm of not place. And here I'm reminded of another poem from the great Indian poet Amir Khusro, Namidanam che manzul bud shab jaye ke man budam, bihar su raqse bismil bud shab jaye ke man budam. And it goes on for several lines, but then it ends with this final couplet, Khoda khud mere majlis bud, andar la makan khusro, Muhammad shame mafal bud, shab jaye ke man budam. So I did not know what this place was the night, the place where I came. Around every corner, there was the Raqse Bismillah. I don't quite have words to translate it, but it's a dance of the bird that's been sacrificed, but it's a sacrifice of all of us who have tried and struggled on the way of Ishq. So everywhere there is a dance that's performed by the Bismillah in this place which we don't know. And at the end of it all, it's God himself, Khoda Khud, who happens to be the master, Andar la makan, in the place that is no place. And Muhammad is the candle that evening, the place where I was. And it wasn't until I was writing this paper I thought, this of course is all about the Mi'raj. This is Khusro. Everybody who's ever been to India and been to a majlis and been to a samah has heard this, but it's actually Khusro reflecting himself and his own experience of Mi'raj. So Kenan Rifai takes us to this place, but what is so beautiful and I think singular about his depiction is that he only takes us there in a collective journey. We never fly alone. Whether a bird or a person, we fly with others. It's always in a flock of those soaring higher and higher. And here is his words also from this wondrous commentary. Such lovers have a mi'raj, an ascent to God, not once, but every instant. They have the wings of the lights to which they ascend, and the pleasure of divine witness in the realm of spirits. Crowns of light are placed on their heads by the hand of divine power. Wah, wah, wah. Neither the intellect nor the ordinary believer can imagine, much less experience such a state. It erases not just space, but also time. And then he goes on to imagine what this is like. On that day, this is the Yom al-Qiyamah, spirits purified of worldly filth will, like angels, quoting from the Holy Quran, ascend unto him in a day, the measure of which is 50,000 years. On that day they rise to God the truth. And while the angels cannot approach God beyond a certain degree, beyond the Sidra tree, Sidra Muntaha, the Mi'raj of the spirits passed beyond that degree, as did Hazrat Muhammad, peace be upon him. So this ascension of God's friends, the awliya Allah, this will make even the heavens tremble. This ascension of God's friends will make even the heavens tremble. And this phrase in this passage comes towards the end of the commentary, explaining that one must keep one's own state and intoxication hidden from others, especially those who might not know or misinterpret. It's a radiant image of collective exuberance and the divine presence, and it presages where I want to end my paper and where the commentary also ends. Listen. Listen, not just to hear and absorb, to learn and love, to learn to love, to run and to burn. Listen in silence and patience beyond the sophistry of the tongue or insight, however keen, of the intellect. And now I'm quoting Kenan Rifai. Be silent till the waters are purified and display the sublime mysteries beneath. For God who clouds waters will purify them again. Patience is half of faith and the way to the greatest of victories. Let us know that only God knows and performs the best, the most righteous of works. Only God knows and performs the best, the most righteous of works. So if the angelic host is great, its chorus fulsome, greater still, beyond all reckoning, is the Mi'raj of the spirits, the collective ascension of God's friends, its force so great that even the heavens tremble. There's another Sufi giant, Sheikh Nizamuddin Awliya, who was the Pir Murshid of Amir Khusro, who cautioned, who urged those who think about the Mi'raj to have caution and humility and awe in imagining the Mi'raj. He describes it like this: he came to me wrapped in the cloak of night, approaching with steps of caution and fright. Then what happened, happened. To say more fails. Imagine the best. Ask not for the details. In skipping the details, Kenan Rifai, like Sheikh Nizamuddin, leaves the best for Allah Ta'ala. God the Absolute, the One, all merciful, always merciful, the gate of mercy, beyond reckoning or imagining. For God only knows and performs the best, the most righteous of works. Alhamdulillah. Ameen.
Sadece anlamından dolayı değil, fakat takdiminden dolayı da bu harikulade manevi sezişler ve en derin manasıyla bir lirizm taşıyan tebliğinden dolayı değerli hocamızı tebrik ediyorum. Elbette geçemezdi Cebrail aleyhisselam. Çünkü onun kendindeliği kendinden ötede bir yerde ve kendini yok ederek birlemeyi mümkün kılamazdı.
His beingness and passing over his beingness could not be possible for Cebrail. Only our prophet, the perfected human being, is at a point of passing through that or going beyond that level, that stage, and we know this, we confirm this, and we remember it in the best possible way. But what we understand is being an object of observation, an object of demand, an object of passage, a trespassing to the true, the genuine, the real, the only one. Why? What was the job of our Prophet Muhammad? To complete the moral, to complete the ahlak. And to do this, we have to realize this ahlak by actually being aware of what is created, which is ourselves. Thank you so much.
Peki. Buyurun efendim.
Efendim öngörülenden
We are an hour delayed than what we projected for, so let us please take a short break of 15 minutes, and if we could please honor the time, we shall be very happy. Thank you so much for your
Kaç dakika
attention.
dedi?